Welcome back. Today's lesson is on writing the equation of a line. This is something you might be familiar with because you did learn it in Algebra 1. However, we're going to revisit this and go slow because it can be tricky and there are a lot of little details to remember depending on whether or not you're given a graph to determine the equation of a line. Perhaps you'll only be given a slope and the y-intercept, or slope and a point, and even still, maybe you were given 2 points. So let's get started on finding the equation of a line. Before we get started on finding the equation of a line, I want to go over a standardized test question that I think is an excellent question for us to go over together. It has to do with slope, which is something we just covered in 2.2. So let's take a look at what we have here. Which slope is the steepest? We have the choice of a -6, -3/4, 0, 1, and 4. Now you might be thinking that you want to pick the largest number, which would be the 4. Some of you might pick that one. But if we really want to understand what slope means, we could put it to a graph. You can either use a grid or a graphing calculator. I'm going to use a graphing calculator. Here I have all of these slopes punched into the calculator, and I put them under the y equals, that's where they went in. And we're going to go ahead and press the graph key to find out how these graphs look. And perhaps that will give us an idea of which one is the steepest. So here's the graph of all 5 of those. If you're wondering where the 5th one is, can you think where it's hiding? You would be correct if it's the x-axis, because that's a slope of 0. It's sitting right on the x-axis. So it's there, you just can't see it because it blends with the axis itself. So we've got all of these lines here. Which one is the most vertical, going straight up and down? I think it's this one right here. And if I press the trace key, I can find out which line that is. And there it is. It's that -6. So it turns out that the steepest slope is the -6. And although it's going down from left to right, and you might think it's the smallest number that was presented, it actually is the steepest slope. And that's what makes this the trickiest. I hope you got that one. Well, let's get started finding the equation of a line in this particular slide given a graph. So when we're given a graph, we want to know how we can go ahead and write y equals mx plus b. That is something that we learned previously, and I just want to recap that m means slope or rise over run. That's what slope is. The y's over the x's, so rise over run. Remember that. And the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So keep those 2 things in mind. We're going to need them to complete these next 2 examples. So in example 1, I have to find out what the equation of the line is. So I'm going to write y equals mx plus b. I have to fill in the m and the b. So how can I find out what the slope is? Let's do that one first. The slope will be the rise over the run between 2 dots that I can locate on the line by choosing a dot on the corner of any square of the line. So right there would be a place that I could put a dot appropriately, and another space might be right here. So now that I have 2 dots that are on the line, I'm going to go ahead and find out the distance between them for the rise and the run. What I mean by that is from one dot to the other. What's the vertical distance? And I can see that it's 1, 2, 3. So I can go ahead and know that the slope so far rises 3. So I'm going to write that down on the side here, that it rises 3. And now how much is it going to run from one dot to the other? Here I go, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it runs 4. So it looks like my slope, since slope is rise over run, my slope is 3 over 4. So there's my slope. Now let's go ahead and find out what the y-intercept is. Where does this line, this blue line, cross the y-axis? Here's the y-axis. It's the one that's vertical. and it looks like it crosses it right on top of that red dot there, and that looks like that is 1, 2. So our conclusion is that the equation of the line is y equals 3/4 x plus 2, which can be written just as you see it, or it can be written y equals 3x over 4 plus 2. Both of these are the same and they are acceptable answers. What I fear is that some of you like to write your equations with a diagonal for the fraction bar, and that's going to cause us some problem. Let's take a look and see why. If I write that y equals 3 diagonal bar 4x plus 2, where do you see the x now? Is it in the numerator or in the denominator? It's in the denominator, and that is not a good thing. That x has to be either in the numerator, or if it's alongside, it can be read as 3 times x if we put that over 1. So very important that you understand how to write these fractions. This one is not good. Now let's give this a try with example 2 and see what's going on here. Alright, one of the things that we got to make sure we're doing when we do this process is to recognize if the slope is going up from left to right or down from left to right. So in particular, this example 2, we know for a fact that this y equals negative mx is going to happen because it's going down. We want to go ahead and put 2 dots somewhere on that line where it crosses the intersection of a square, so maybe right here, and I'll go down to this area over here, and it looks like we have a nice situation where we can go ahead and find the rise. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a run of 1, 2. So it looks like it rises 4 and runs 2, and that reduces to a negative 2x. And where does it cross the the y-axis? It crosses it at 1, 2, negative 3. So this equation is going to be y equals negative 2x minus 3. Just recapping what I did here, I noticed it's going down from left to right, so that makes it negative. I knew when I picked 2 dots somewhere on the line that meet the corner of the squares, I can pick any 2. It's going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and running 2. I reduce my fraction 4 over 2, and that gives me an answer of 2 for the slope, so m equals 2. And then I go back to this y-axis, which I'm going to highlight in light blue. That's the y-axis. Where does the line cross it? It crosses it right here, and that means at the negative 3. So our answer is y equals negative 2x, negative 3. Now in this next slide, we're going to be given the slope and the y-intercept, and we have to find the equation of the line. So slope once again is m, and the y-intercept b. We're going back to this y equals mx plus b. All we simply have to do is fill in those 2 letters, the m and the b. When we know them, the equation can be written. Well, looking at example 1, m equals 4 and b equals negative 2, it appears that they've already given us all the information that we need. So this is going to be a piece of cake. All we have to do now is write y equals, and we've got that 4, so we're going to say 4x, and the b is negative 2. I am done. So let's hope every question can be that easy, right? Well, let's see. How about this next one? M equals negative 2/3 and b equals 10. How are we going to write that? Same thing, guys. All we have to do is say y equals negative 2/3. Careful how we write this. That x has to make sure it's in the middle, make sure it's not down, plus 10. Or remember that you can write it as y equals negative 2x over 3 plus 10. Either way is correct. So that's all we have to do. One more to go now. We have example 3, m equals 0 and b equals 8. Do you remember what m equals 0? If a slope is 0, what it looks like? It means it's flat, right? There's no steepness to it at all. So what would our equation be? It would be y equals 0x plus 8. Now what's the value of our 0x right there? What's this value? What is 0 times x? Well, 0 times x is 0. What is 0 plus 8? It's just 8. Final answer? Believe it or not, this is an equation. Y equals 8. This is an equation. So keep that in mind. You can go ahead and have just y equals 8, and that will be a correct answer, and that's all we need to do. So keep it simple. Just plug in the m, plug in the b when you know it. Those are the easy problems right there. Finding the equation of a line given slope and point. So they give you the m, and they're going to give you an x, and they're going to give you a y. I'm going to give you two methods in which to solve this one problem, and the reason for that is it just depends on your personal preference on which you prefer. Now in the first method, I'm going to use the slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b. It's something you're familiar with, and since you're familiar with it, perhaps you will find this easy. I'm not sure. Let's take a look at what we need to do. Now in the original problem, they gave us the slope, and so we can go ahead and substitute that in the equation by subbing in m at 5. So we're going to put 5 in for m. Do we know anything else given to us that can go into this y equals mx plus b? Well, they gave us an x and they gave us a y. So let's plug those two things in. What is our y value? Careful here, it's not the 4. The y is 10. And our x is going to be 4. So what I simply did was I took the bits of information that they gave me, the 5, the 4, and the 10, and I plugged them into y equals mx plus b. How many variables do I have left to solve for? I just have the b. Good, so let's get started with this. I have 10 equals 20 plus b. Get rid of that 20. It looks like my b is a negative 10. Don't forget to write your equation in slope-intercept form. That was what the directions indicated. So y equals 5x minus 10. Now let's take a look at the second method. This one is point slope formula, and it's something that you need to memorize if you're going to use it. It's pretty easy though. It's the difference in the y's equals slope times the difference in the x's. We're going to fill in everything except the y and the x. Let's get started. So we have y minus y1. Again, that's going to be the 10. What's our slope value? It's 5. We do not fill in the first x, but we'll fill in the second one. And so that x1 is going to be 4. Now all we have to do is solve. Y minus 10 equals 5x minus 20. Let's add that 10 to both sides. And the nice thing about the point slope formula is that it gives you your equation. There's nothing left for you to do. How you end it is exactly the answer you need. There's no more steps. So you might like that particular method for that reason, because the answer is given to you as you proceed through solving the equation. So there you have it. Look those over, decide which method you want to use, and feel free to make your choice. In this next example, we are given that m equals negative 2/3 and passes through the point 3, 6. I wanted to give you this graph and show you just what it is we're doing, because if you don't have a good vision as to what's going on with the information you're given, a lot of times you can forget really what it means, or it might be even more complicated than it appears till you see the visual. So here's your visual. I'm given the point 3, 6. So let's go ahead and plot that 3, 6. And there you see over 3 up 6 is where the point that the line goes through. It goes through that point such that it's going to be a negative 2/3. What does that mean? That means that it's going to drop 2 as it runs 3. And with that, you would get the line that looks like that. What is that red line? We are being asked to find the equation of that red line. That's what our job is. So that's what it means to find the equation of the line. How do we do that? Well, you can pick one of two ways. You can use method 1. Method 1 was where we went ahead and we had y equals mx plus b. If we know the m, which we do, which is negative 2/3, we know the x, it's 3. Remember, x is in our point over to the right there, our point of 3, 6. And we have the plus b, and we have one more thing to plug in here, and that is the y value, and the y is 6. So I'm going to go ahead and plug a 6 in here. Now we got to work our fractions. Put that 3 over 1, cancel the 3's, and what am I left with? Negative 2. And I'm going to rewrite that b, bring that 6 down, add 2 to both sides, and b equals 8. So the answer is y equals, what's our slope again? Negative 2/3 x plus 8. Method 2 would look like this. Method 2 will be y minus 6 equals a slope of negative 2/3 times x minus 3. Computing this out and distributing, I get a negative 2/3 x plus 2, because those 3's cancel. A negative times a negative is positive. So y minus 6 equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. Add 6 to both sides. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 8. You can see that these two equations match, and they should, because they are the same, just two different methods to get to the same answer. Now it's time for you to try one. Go ahead and give this a try. Find the equation in slope-intercept form given a slope of negative 1/2 and the point 2,3. Work this out, use any method you prefer, and I will reveal the answer. Press the pause key and come back when you're finished. So how'd you do? Did you get the answer of y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4? If you did, good job. Now we're going to find the equation of a line given 2 points. So we have the 2 points, 1, 5, and 4, negative 1. So imagine those 2 points on a grid. And we remember from geometry that between any 2 points is exactly one line. And our job is to find the equation of that line. Remembering that what we've been saying this entire lesson, in order to find the equation of the line, you need to find an m and a b. So putting your thinking cap on, what can we find given 2 points? Can we find an m? Can we find the b? You're right if you said we can find the m with 2 points. We just learned that previously. M is the difference in the y's over the difference in the x's, that rise over run situation. And so I can go ahead and take my points, that second y minus the first y, over the second x minus the first y, gives me a negative 6 over 3, or negative 2. So far I know that y equals negative 2x plus, I do not know the intercept, and that's what I'm going to find using either method 1 or method 2. So follow along, here we go. I'm going to put parentheses in for the y, the m, the x. I'm looking for the b. What do I sub in the parentheses? Well, I know the slope. It's -2, so I'm going to put that in for the m. Now looking up at our original points, do I want to use the 1, 5 or the 4, -1 for my x and my y value? You know what? It does not matter. I'm going to pick the two positive numbers, so 1 and 5, and I can go ahead now and plug in that y at 5 and the x at 1. And I'm going to get 5 equals -2 plus b. b equals 7. I am not finished yet. When I use method 1, I have to go ahead and write the equation by putting in the slope, -2, and writing the y-intercept at 7. So here is my answer for method 1. Now in method 2, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, only I'm going to use the second point because I want to prove to you that it does not matter which point you use, you will get to the same answer. So here we go with y minus a -1 equals -2 times x minus 4. Notice I always put my subs in parentheses. That allows me to evaluate a double negative at a positive. And keeping this problem going, I have a negative times a negative is +8. Slide that 1 over, and y equals -2x plus 7. So there you have it. Either method we used, we got to the same answer. Okay, so that concludes how to find the equation of a line. Let's move along and wrap things up. Alright, now it's time for you to use your skills and see if you can use either method to find the following. Find the equation in slope-intercept form given the points -1, -5, -6, 10. Press that pause key, do some computation, and when you're all finished, come back and I will reveal the answer for you. Don't forget to press that pause key. Okay, so you've done your computation. No matter which method you used, you would get the same answer, so let's see if you got the right one. The answer is y equals -3x, -8. So wrapping things up for finding the equation of a line, make sure that when you do so, you look for two key elements of a line, and that is the slope and the y-intercept. Those two things will allow you to write the equation of a line. And when you do write that equation, make sure you put it in y equals mx plus b form. That concludes our lesson today for finding the equation of a line.